What's going on, traders? What an amazing day for us in the Discord. We have absolutely been killing it. Earnings plays, regular plays, we have been collecting a bag. So you are truly, truly missing out if you are not in the Discord. Link is in the description below. But we got some serious things we need to talk about here, and that is a possible drop happening within the next day or two. Now, I want to make this clear. I don't think this is the ultimate drop or, the market correction or crash or anything. I think this is going to be a healthy pullback before we see more upside. So I just want to make that clear, just in case someone gets on here, hears that, and just start panicking and it'll start selling everything. Okay, I think it's going to be a healthy pullback before we see another move higher. Now we're looking at the daily time frame on the NQ, and as you guys can see, we are looking at this rising wedge. We've been talking about this for the past few videos. These rising wedge patterns forming across the board, and as you guys can see, we rejected here, rejection here, rejection here, rejection here. And so far, we are pretty close to the top of this rising wedge at around 21,600, 21,650. And so I do urge you to be cautious around this area because we could see a pullback. Now, some things that I'm going to be paying attention tomorrow, 30 minutes into open, is how we open. And what I mean by that is if we see a sell off almost immediately at open, then I think that's a great sign for bulls. I think that's a really good sign for bulls. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But if we just continue to head higher and higher, right, and we maybe even gap up tomorrow, right, at open, I think that's a good sign for bears. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. So definitely don't force anything. Well, at least I'm not going to force anything. You do what you want with this information. I want to wait for confirmation because right here is a huge warning sign, right, in regards to the NQ. Now, again, I don't think this is going to be the ultimate pullback. Okay, I don't think it's going to probably look scary, but overall, I think it's just going to be a healthy pullback before we see another run back up to the upside. And the reason why I say that is we're looking at the ES, and in regards to the ES, we still are in this rising wedge, and as you guys can see, we still have plenty of space to the upside, all the way as high as about 6,200. And so, if we do get that pullback, right, we can simply just retest that 6,050 level before we head higher and head all the way back towards 6,200. Now, obviously, we won't head straight there. We'll probably see some type of turbulence along the way. But regardless, if we do get a pullback, I imagine we're just going to simply retest this level, maybe go as low as about 6,020 before we head higher all over again. What do I tell you guys all the time? Typically, when the market pulls back, it's only making more room for upside. Why? Because the market is historically bullish way more than it is bearish. Feel free to check your charts. Go back in time, you'll see it. The market goes up way more than it goes down. So that is the reason why I say that all the time. So ES is looking really good for a possible pullback. And if we do get that pullback, I do imagine bulls are going to buy it all over again. And then we start heading back to the upside, get that nice little rally, Christmas rally, whatever. And, life is good all over again. And so we look at the triple Qs to make sure everything is correlating, right? And so far, triple Qs is falling what the NASDAQ is saying. We zoom out on the daily time frame. Again, we see this rising wedge pattern. Um, you reject it here, rejection here, rejection here. And so right now we're pretty much at the top of the rising wedge pattern. And I told you guys my price target, if we're being humble, was 520. And if we're being optimistic, we can go as high as about 525, 530. So my price target still remains the same. I still think we're going to see that 525, 526 range. 525 being your psych level before we possibly, okay, again, possibly see some type of rejection. Now, one thing we see all the time that happens when it comes to rising wedge patterns, and this can very much happen if we do see some type of, if we do see continued movement to the upside at open tomorrow, where we pretty much just break out of here. We can call it some type of melt up or false breakout. We break out of here towards the upside, and then we start seeing a rollover effect. Okay, so that's very much possible. It can happen. It happens all the time, and that's why it's like one of my favorite patterns to trade because it's just so predictable. So if we do break further to the upside, I would definitely be looking for that rollover effect. And if we roll back into this pattern, this rising wedge pattern, then I do imagine we're going to head back towards this retest area to around 517, 516.5. Now, if we just immediately reject at open, right? If we do immediately reject from up here, then I will look for a bounce from that 516.5, 517 range, and then we start to head higher and really start hitting those 525, 530 targets. So somewhere around that range. So as you guys can see, support is here. You know, you rejected here, you have some type of consolidation here. So if we see a pullback, this is where I imagine we're going to head towards, and then we'll see what happens from there. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at in regards to the triple Qs. Now let's talk about the SPY. And so before we get deep into the SPY, I just want us to look at the options chain real quick in regards to the SPY. So a lot of puts came in for the SPY. We have calls mixed in. We'll talk about those in a bit. So what's interesting is the 604 puts. Okay, 604 expiration tomorrow. You got a 3.47 million premium, and then you have a, I don't know if you guys can see the ask over bid, but there's a 49,561 ask over a 22,000 bid. You have a 606 put for tomorrow that expires tomorrow, and a 13.5 million premium. And then you have the bid and ask are really, really close, so I'm not going to get all into that. But regardless, this is pretty much confirming that we're going to see some type of drop tomorrow. Now, if we correlate this with the SPY, we'll get back into the calls in a bit and how they are looking. If we correlate this with the SPY, as you guys can see, there's a gap all the way at 604, 603.5 range. So we could see, tomorrow where we, drop down, retest the bottom of this rising wedge, fill this gap up, and then we start to head higher towards that 610, 613, 610, 612 target that we were talking about. I mean, we can go as high as about 615 if we do see that pullback. Because again, what do we do when we drop? We're just simply creating more space for upside. And in case you're wondering where I'm getting that target from, if you're new to the YouTube channel, that 610, 612 target, you rejected here, you rejected here. So if we do look to fill this void to the upside, I do imagine that that's where we're going to head towards. 610 will be your psych level. Highest we're looking at is about 612, 615 range. So that's what I'll be looking at in regards to the SPY. Now, if we go back to unusual wells and look at the options chain again, calls are in. Okay, so you do have 608 calls, right? That correlates with the 610 target, right? And you have a 34,808 ask over a 27,000 bid, and then you have, your 609 calls that expire tomorrow. You have your 610 calls that expire um what is this Friday, right? And then you have another 610 order come in with a 5.68 million premium that expires for next week. So everything's making sense, right? Everything I'm saying is making sense. You got 608 calls that expire Friday. You got 609 calls that expire Friday, and all of them are to have a higher ask than bid. So this is showing that whales are expecting both scenarios to happen, or they can just be hedging. But I'm betting on both scenarios happening, and it's all a matter of how we open tomorrow. So really, really pay attention to that and pay attention to how we open tomorrow. But regardless, these calls, they have a decent, they have decent premiums. You have 1.75 million premium on the 609 calls. You have a 4.37 million premium on the 608 calls. So if we do see a drop tomorrow, I think it's going to be short lived, and then we'll start seeing these calls play out. Now, if we just immediately start to head towards the upside tomorrow, then eventually we'll see these puts play out, and then I would definitely start looking to get the Discord members into these type of plays, if we do see that move happen. But either or, I'm looking to play either direction. It doesn't necessarily matter to me as long as we make money. So that's what I'm looking at in regards to the SPY. Again, everything's correlating. If we're talking about upside, like I said before in the last few videos, we can go as high as about 610, 612. If you want to be optimistic and greedy, 615. But if we're talking about downside, that this gap fill at around 603.5. So that's what I'm looking at in regards to SPY. So let's look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin looks like it's ready to head towards that 100K, 102K target. It's looking really good. And the reason why I say that, I mean, first off, I mean, if on the options chain, whales are absolutely buying um, the Bitcoin ETF. They're buying Riot. We jumped into some Riot calls, Coin, MSTR. I mean, everything's going crazy. So we go down to the 4 hour time frame, and I mean, look at this clean break. I mean, so if we do get a pullback, I will watch for a retest of 97,000. As long as we stay above 97,000, I think Bitcoin is going to easily head towards 100K, if not over the night. I mean, boom, you see a move like this, you retest, and then you just head higher from there. But this thing looks absolutely diabolical. I have nothing bad to say about Bitcoin in regards to being bearish. Again, If it stays above 97K, as long as it stays above 97K, there's nothing to worry about here. It looks like 100K, 102K is on the way in regards to Bitcoin. So definitely pay attention to that move. And so next thing I want to talk about, and then we'll get into some stocks, is the VIX. So the VIX is getting dangerous. Okay, it's getting dangerous, and this is why I said a pullback could be on the way. The VIX is getting dangerous. We finally got a really decent bullish candle here. So this isn't a great sign. I will say that much. And as you guys can see, we had some type of rejection from this trend. I may be a little off, or it could be off. Regardless, we follow what the candlesticks do, right? And so, yeah, this is a bad sign. So I told you guys to be cautious around that 13, between 13 and 12.5 target, and we went as low as about 12.9. So, I would definitely be cautious here. Be careful here. Again, VIX could play games. I mean, it can just consolidate here. It doesn't necessarily mean that the market's going to just like tumble or anything like that. The VIX can just consolidate for the next day or so, and then maybe Friday we see some type of sell off in the market. So, this is the first real bullish candle we got in a while. I mean, you see it here, just nothing but red candles, maybe one bullish candle here, but that's nothing to really worry about. But this guy right here, definitely a sign that we could see some type of sell off in the near future. So, hopefully everything's making sense to you guys. Hopefully everything's adding up. The math is mathing right now because again, like I said, in the next day or two, I do think we're going to see some type of drop. So definitely be on the lookout for that. So let's talk about some stocks. So the first stock I want to talk about is Microsoft. So we day traded Microsoft today, which is rare for me because I don't really day trade. I like to swing trade, but we killed this thing. I mean, we made 40% in like 5 minutes. It was insane. So Microsoft looks ready to go. We jumped in another play. We jumped into Microsoft for 50 calls for next week. I believe it was 450 calls. Yeah, 450 calls for next week, December 13th. No, actually, I'm wrong. Sorry, December 27th. So December 27th, we jumped in for 50 calls. I mean, you guys see it here. We broke above the symmetrical triangle. Worst case scenario, if we do get some type of pullback on Microsoft, I mean, we still have plenty of time on this thing, so I'm not too worried. We see some type of, retest of 433.5 and then start to head higher from there. But this thing looks absolutely primal. This is why I say that whatever pullback we do get, I think it's going to be short lived and we're going to see more upside from there. So definitely be on the lookout for Microsoft. It's been a long time. Microsoft has been playing games all year and it's finally making its move. So definitely pay attention to this. Really like this play. Again, we are in 450 calls for December 27th. We're currently in profit. It's nothing too crazy. I want to say it's like 1% right now. I mean, we just got into it. So nothing to really talk about, but I just want you guys to monitor it. If you're not in the Discord, just monitor it, just like maybe you did the spy play. I'll give you guys some, a few gems here to watch, and that way you can decide if you want to join the Discord. And you're like, oh, this guy's legit. Okay, so something to pay attention to. Microsoft looks really good here. I like this play. Worst case scenario, again, it just retests 433.5. I'll just add to our current plays, and then we go from there. So really like Microsoft looks really good. And so next, I want to talk about SMH before we talk about Nvidia. SMH. So we talked about this. We talked about this double bottom, right? You have a bottom here, and then you finally broke that neckline. You got a nice clean break above that neckline. You ended with a doji for the day, but nothing too crazy. I mean, this is maybe a spinning top, either or, it doesn't matter. Regardless, you're breaking to the upside, and you're starting to head towards these gaps. We took Nvidia calls. We took profit on Nvidia calls. We've been in like 142 calls for like since Monday, so absolutely beautiful play. But yeah, Nvidia, I mean not Nvidia, SMH looks really good heading towards that 560 target. Worst case scenario, if we do see that pullback, we just simply retest 249, 248, 250 psych level, and then we head higher. Okay, so things are looking good. We roll back. I told you guys, I've been telling you guys this for like a long time right now. I wanted to see SMH break back into this rising wedge pattern and see this double bottom play out. And if we're like really being greedy, if we're really being optimistic, we talked about this before. SMH can go as high as about 278, 280, and fill this gap all the way up here. There's also a huge weekly fair value gap. Now, ironic enough, um, this gap leads all the way to the top of this rising wedge. So something to pay attention to, especially if we're talking about Nvidia, because we know that Nvidia is SMH's number one holding, right? And so if we look at Nvidia, I think Nvidia is ready to go to 150. I do. I genuinely do. I think Nvidia is going to see 150. Right now, it mounted this level right here at around 144. As long as it stays above 144, this thing looks great. Now, obviously, it can tease here, and just in case you guys think I'm like making this up, I mean, you see it here, right? You rejected here, right? You rejected here, you bounced here. You did your little roller coaster here, you consolidated here. So this is a very key level that we closed above. So I think Nvidia is absolutely ready to start heading towards that 150 target. Um, it's all a matter on how it reacts to the market pullback. It can obviously, just mount this level and head higher, right? Or it can just simply, play games and do one of these moves where it just simply, retest at around 140 and then do this all over again. So it can be annoying, but we'll see. Okay. But again, regardless, I think Nvidia is ready to see 150. I mean, if you're talking about SMH heading all the way to about the 280s, Nvidia can go way higher than that, like 270. I mean, not 270, 170 or something like that. So we'll see. Other than that, Nvidia looks great. Okay. Next, I want to talk about Apple. So this is another play we took profit on. Apple absolutely paid us a nice little bag here. Apple looks great. I mean, I got nothing bad to say about Apple. You're very illiquid to the downside. I will say that much. That is kind of troublesome. I will say that much. You're very illiquid. So if we do get a pullback, which I'm kind of hoping for because I want to re-enter Apple all over again, I will look for a retest of this level right here at around 237.5, and then we head higher all over again. But Apple looks primal. I mean, this thing looks like it's just ready to go to, godlike levels. So we'll see. Apple looks great. I got nothing bad to say about Apple. 250, 245. I would definitely look for that 245 target, and then after that 250. But I think this thing is absolutely diabolical. It is pretty overbought. I will say that much. So a pullback is due. So definitely be careful with this. But regardless, after that pullback, I would definitely look to buy into Apple. IWM. So the Russell has, we see the Russell, and a few members are talking about this in the Discord. But the Russell just continues to try to drop, and the market's just holding it hostage. So what I will say, because I know it's rolling back into this pattern, but you're creating a lower high here, so it's nothing to really worry about, at least in my opinion. So until we break above 245, I would say there's nothing to worry about here. But I would like to see us break below 239 again. We break below 239 again, I think the Russell is just going to head lower and then it's going to give up. So the Russell wants to break lower. It's just the market is holding it hostage. That's all. And that's really all I have for the Russell. And that's really all I want to talk about in this video, guys. Hopefully, you got something out of it. If you agree, just comment your thoughts below. If you disagree, let me know. Just keep it respectful. Discord links in the description below. Again, you're missing out. The earnings plays is going crazy, man. We do plan on playing Lulu earnings Thursday. So if you want in on that, see how that plays out, feel free to join the Discord link in the description below. Other than that, that's all I have. Until the next video, traders, you have you a good one.